Hi, I'm Sarah Weiler, founder of Contemporary Education. Today I'm going to talk about shifting school culture from a culture of obedience to a culture of critique. So this video is part of a series of videos about shifting school culture from what I call the old basics or old basic principles of education to a set of new basic principles of education that I call the 5 C's. So the old basics, I talk about reproduction, shifting towards creativity, fragmentation, shifting towards connection, obedience, shifting towards critique, tolerance, shifting towards caring, and finally, competition, shifting towards collaboration. Today I'm going to focus on the shift from obedience in school cultures towards developing or cultivating a culture of critique. So this obviously centers on the relationship that schools develop between students and the rules. In many cases, this relationship is something that is based on rules that are pre-established, not with students' involvement, and students are expected to follow those rules beyond question, to obey the rules, and the rules are not presented in a kind of cultural historical way that they have an origin, that they have a reason for existing, that they serve a purpose. They're usually treated as something fixed and static that just exists, and they're enforced through the use of incentives. So if you follow the rule, you can receive praise. If you follow the rules, you might even receive material rewards or other incentives. And if you don't follow the rules, you can be subject to a vast array of disincentives, from outright punishments to forms of marginalization and exclusion. So what I propose is, instead of proposing that we teach students in schools to blindly follow rules beyond question, which we need to step back and think about what kinds of citizens we are preparing students to be with this kind of mentality, I propose that we shift from this obedience ethos within schools to an ethos of critique. This doesn't mean that anything goes. It doesn't mean that there is anarchy, there are no rules. It means that there are rules and students are part of the school community and they have an active voice in questioning those rules, challenging those rules, making proposals in relation to those rules. But typically it needs to start with just understanding what is the origin of these rules, what purpose do these rules serve, why do they exist, and having a discussion about it, that they don't just exist out of some kind of void, that there's a reason for them. Can they be negotiated? Can they be discussed? This space needs to exist in schools just as it needs to exist in any kind of democratic society. Space for rethinking, for reflecting, for transforming the possibilities of the rules. Sometimes the rules need to change. If you think about a country's history, sometimes the laws need to change. Sometimes what we thought was fair and just in one time period, we don't think is fair and just in another time period. What's important too is for students, just like I spoke about in the video on shifting from a reproductive model to a creative model of education in relation to knowledge, that the essence of that is about teaching students how to think rather than teaching them what to think. The same holds true in shifting from an obedience ethos to a critique ethos in schools. This helps students, it supports students to think about they have an active role in school, just as they have an active role in society as citizens. And that part of that is questioning and challenging and thinking about the rules that we have in our communities, that we participate in, that we take part in, and that we constitute, and that we have a responsibility in relation to those rules. If we think that something is unjust, it is worthy of challenge. At the same time, when we do follow the rules, we should follow the rules in the sense that we're committed to them. We believe in them. We think they're worthy of existing, worthy of following. And in that way, we can be held more accountable to them. So rather than controlling and the enforcement of rules through incentives and disincentives, it would be much more preferable for us, thinking of we want to have a democratic society, that we have democratic values that involves negotiating and discussing and debating different ideas, that leads to I'm committed to these rules and I take responsibility for my actions in relation to these rules and following these rules. I can also be open to hearing other ideas and other perspectives, and open to the possibility of changing the rules when I think that it's something that's worthwhile and those decisions are made collectively. But on the individual level, I can see the intrinsic value of the rules rather than following the rules because I'm being externally coerced through incentives and disincentives. This is even true. I mean, I'm a parent. I'm the mother of 3 children, and it's really true too in the household, in the home, not only in schools, not only in the larger community and in society, but thinking about how we have discussions about rules at home with our children, and that we do not coerce them into obeying us, but that we have a reciprocal relationship where we can listen to one another and we can defend the reasons that we hold to be true in that moment, what we believe is right, what we believe is wrong, but that they are part of the discussion. They're not outside of that discussion meant to simply obey and follow without questioning, without giving their opinion and their ideas, that it's something that can be and should be open to discussion, and that they can then think for themselves and not be told what to think, but be taught how to think. So in essence, that's my take on it. As always, I welcome you to please share your opinion. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Partially agree? Partially disagree? Why? What are your reasons? So join me and others in this dialogue about contemporary education at contemporaryeducation.com. Thank you.